there is a kind of fear that doesn't make noise. It doesn't slam doors or raise its voice. It sits beside you at the kitchen table at 2 in the morning, while the house is dark and everyone you love is sleeping under your roof. And it whispers a single devastating question. What if something happens to them? You know that question. You've heard it. Maybe not tonight, maybe not yesterday, but you've heard it in the quiet moments, in the spaces between everything else, when the phone rings a little too late, when the cough lasts a little too long, when the news plays in the background and the world feels like a place that doesn't ask permission before it takes something from you. I'm not here to tell you that fear is wrong. I'm here to tell you that fear has been sitting in a chair that was never meant for it, and something is about to change in the way you see that. Something you weren't expecting. Something that's already been moving toward you since the moment you pressed play on this video. Let me guess something about you. You've prayed before. Maybe today. Maybe this morning. Maybe so quietly that even you barely noticed. Just a breath shaped like a plea, sent upward while your hands were busy with something else. You've prayed for your children, even the grown ones who don't call as often as they used to. You've prayed for your spouse, for the strength of a body that doesn't bounce back the way it used to. You've prayed for people who don't even know you're praying for them. A grandchild, a sibling whose path has drifted, a friend whose name crossed your mind like a candle flickering in a room you can't enter. And sometimes, if we're being honest, and I think we should be, sometimes those prayers feel like they hit a ceiling made of something cold and hard. Not always, but enough. Enough to make you wonder on certain nights whether the words you send up are heard, or whether they just dissolve into the dark like everything else that disappears. I understand that wonder. I've sat with people who carried it, and what I've come to know, what I want to walk you through slowly, carefully, like we're crossing a river together and I'm steadying your arm, is that the silence after a prayer is never empty. Never. But it takes a kind of seeing that most people haven't been shown how to do. And that's what this is about. There's something ancient I want to share with you, something that was spoken thousands of years before you or I ever drew breath, in a language shaped by wind and desert, and the kind of darkness that makes a person look up. It begins with a word that doesn't translate easily, a word that means a hiding place, but also a fortress, but also something gentler, like the shadow of a wing pulled close around someone you refuse to let the world touch. You've felt that shadow before, even if you didn't have a name for it. That moment when something should have gone wrong and didn't. That intersection you passed through a second before, or a second after. That diagnosis that changed. That child who came home. That morning when the grief was unbearable and then, without explanation, something shifted and you got out of bed anyway. I'm going to show you where those moments live. I'm going to show you that they were never random. But I need you to stay with me, because what comes next is not what you'd expect. And I think you already sense that. I think you already feel it. The way you feel weather changing before the sky even moves. Something is already shifting. And the prayer that has been forming in your heart, the one you haven't fully spoken yet, is older and more powerful than you know. We're just getting started. But I promise you, by the end of this, you will never pray the same way again. And neither will the people you love. Let me tell you about a tree I once saw. It was in a part of this country where the winters don't just visit, they move in and stay. The kind of cold that cracks pipes and makes grown men question why they chose to live where the sky turns white for 4 months straight. And in the middle of a field, standing completely alone, there was an oak. No fence around it, no forest to shelter it. Just that one tree, gnarled and enormous. with branches that looked like they had been arguing with the wind for 100 years. I asked someone, a man who'd farmed that land his whole life, how that tree survived. Because other trees had fallen. Other trees had split under the weight of ice and time. But this one stood like it had made a decision decades ago that it simply would not lie down. He said something I've never forgotten. He said, "The ones that fall are the ones that grow fast. This one grew slow. Its roots go down twice as deep as it goes up." The storm can't take what's already holding onto something it can't see. I want you to hold that image for a moment, because that tree is you, and more than that, it's the prayer you've been praying, the one you thought hit a ceiling, the one that felt like it dissolved into silence. Here is what I want you to understand, and I need you to feel this before you think it. Your prayers have not been floating upward into nothing. They have been going downward, into the deep, hidden places where roots form, where protection is not built, it's grown. And growth takes time. Growth takes a kind of patience that feels like nothing is happening, when in fact something is happening that the storm will never be able to undo. The ancient words I started to share with you, they come from a song that was sung by people who knew storms far worse than ours. People who lived in a land where danger was not theoretical, and they wrote something that has survived every winter that has ever come since. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Notice that word, dwells, not visits, not occasionally turns toward dwells. That's a word about residence, about settling in, about making your home in something larger than the storm outside your window. And that word, shadow, that's the same shadow I mentioned earlier, the shadow of a wing, the kind a mother bird draws over her young when the hawk circles overhead. It's not absence of danger, it's presence of something stronger. But here is the part that changes everything, and I want you to lean in close for this. The prayer of protection, the real one, the ancient one, the one that actually holds, is not a prayer that asks for the storm to never come. Read that song again. It doesn't say no storm will ever reach your door. It says something far more staggering. It said that when the storm comes, and it will come, because storms always come to everyone who lives long enough, there is a covering already in place, a shelter that was built in the quiet seasons, in the ordinary mornings, in the two-word prayers whispered over coffee, in the silent blessing spoken over a sleeping child's room, even though that child is now 35 years old and lives 3 states away. Your prayers have been building that shelter this entire time, every single one. And here is where it gets even deeper. And this is the door I'm about to open, but not walk through yet. There is a reason the shelter holds. There is a reason the roots go deep. And it has nothing to do with how strong your faith is. It has nothing to do with whether you've prayed enough or believed enough or been good enough. The reason is something that was set in motion long before you ever learned to fold your hands. And it is still moving, still working, still reaching toward the people you love, right now in ways you cannot yet see. But I'm not going to tell you what that reason is. Not yet. Because you need to sit with something first, something you've been carrying that you were never meant to carry alone. And I need to show it to you before the full picture will make any sense. So let me ask you something, and I want you to answer it honestly, in the silence of your own heart, where no one else can hear. What is the one thing you've been too afraid to pray for? The prayer you've held back, not because you don't believe, but because believing in it and having it not come true would break something in you that you're not sure you could repair. Hold that prayer. Don't let it go, because what's coming next is about that exact prayer. And the reason it matters more than every other prayer you've ever spoken. I want to go back to that prayer you're holding, the one you've been too afraid to speak. I'm not going to ask you to say it out loud. I'm not going to ask you to name it to anyone. But I am going to ask you to do something else. Something that might feel strange at first. But I need you to trust me on this. I want you to stop trying to protect yourself from it. Here's what I mean. When you hold a prayer back, when you keep it locked inside a room in your chest because you're afraid of what it would mean if it didn't come true, you're not actually protecting yourself. You're building a wall around something that was always meant to grow. And walls don't just keep the danger out. They keep the light out too. They keep the covering out. And that prayer, the one you won't say, starts to atrophy in the dark, like a root that was never given soil. The ancient song I've been sharing with you, the one about the shelter, the shadow, the dwelling place, it doesn't stop where I left it. It goes further, much further. And what it says next is so staggering that I want you to feel the weight of every word. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in darkness, nor the destruction that lays waste at noonday. Read that again in your mind. Slowly, you will not fear. It doesn't say you will not face. It says you will not fear. That's a different thing entirely. The terror still comes in the night. We all know that. The arrow still flies. The phone still rings at hours when phones shouldn't ring. But something has been placed around you, around the people you love, that transforms the relationship between you and the thing that threatens you. The threat doesn't disappear. Your fear of it does. And when the fear goes, the threat loses the only weapon it ever really had. But how? How does that happen? What is this covering? This invisible thing that stands between your loved ones and the dark? Let me show you something. Think about the last time you drove somewhere with someone you love in the passenger seat. Maybe your spouse, maybe a child, maybe a grandchild in the back. And you came to an intersection, and someone ran a red light, or a deer bolted from the tree line, or the road turned to ice without warning. And in that split second, before your mind could form a single thought, your arm shot out across the passenger seat. That instinct, that involuntary gesture of shielding the person beside you, even before you knew what you were shielding them from. Where does that come from? It's not learned. It's not practiced. It's something older than thought, older than decision. It lives in a place so deep inside you that you couldn't stop it if you tried. And here is what I need you to understand. What I've been building toward. What the ancient song has been pointing to this entire time. That instinct is not yours. You didn't create it. You received it. It was placed in you. And the same force that moves your arm to shield the person you love is the force that moves when you pray. When you pray for your family, even the prayer you've been afraid to say, that same arm reaches out, not yours. Something through you. Something that has been reaching since before you were born. Through every generation that prayed before you. Through every grandmother who knelt by her bed. Through every father who whispered a blessing over a sleeping child he wasn't sure he could provide for. That reaching doesn't stop. It doesn't expire. It doesn't hit a ceiling. It goes exactly where it needs to go. To the person you love at the moment they need it most, in a way you will never see, and they will never know came from you. Your prayers are working, all of them, even the ones you stopped praying because you thought they weren't heard. But there's something else, something I haven't told you yet, something about what happens when you finally release that prayer you've been holding back, because releasing it doesn't just change the prayer, it changes you. And what it changes into is what the final part of this journey is all about. I'm going to take you there now. But I need to warn you, what's coming may feel like the ground is shifting under your feet. That's not the ground failing. That's the ground settling into something that will hold. Something happens inside the human heart when a prayer is finally spoken that has been held back for years. It's not dramatic. There's no thunder, no voice from the sky, no sudden answer that arrives wrapped in certainty. What happens is quieter than that, and far more powerful. Imagine a dam, not a massive concrete structure, something smaller, older, built stone by stone over a lifetime by someone who thought they were protecting themselves. Each stone is a reason. I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want God to think I don't trust the plan He already has. I don't want to ask for too much. You know those stones. You've laid some of them yourself. We all have. And then one day, maybe today, maybe right now, sitting wherever you're sitting, listening to this voice come through your screen, one stone shifts, not because you forced it, because something got underneath it, something like permission, something like the realization that the river behind that dam was never meant to stay still. It was meant to move, to reach the people downstream, the people you love, the people you've been carrying in the quietest, most hidden room of your heart, behind the wall you built to keep hope from becoming grief. When you speak that prayer, when you finally let it go, the river doesn't flood. It flows. It finds its course. It moves with a current that has been gathering pressure for years. And that pressure was never the sign of something wrong. It was the sign of something ready. Here is where the ancient song returns. And this time, it speaks directly to what I'm describing. Because He holds fast to me in love, I will deliver Him. I will protect Him. Because He knows my name. Holds fast. That's not passive. That's not vague. That's a grip. That's a hand that refuses to let go. Not because it's strong, but because it's honest. Because it has stopped pretending it doesn't need help. The song doesn't say because He was perfect. It doesn't say because He never doubted. It says because He holds fast, because He clings, because He reaches, because, and read this carefully, He knows my name. Knowing a name is not about information. In the world of that ancient song, knowing someone's name meant knowing their character, their nature. It meant you had been with them long enough to recognize their voice in a crowd, to tell the difference between their footsteps and a stranger's. The prayer of protection is not a formula, it's a relationship. And relationships are built in the small, unremarkable moments. The two-word prayers, the sighs, the times you said thank you for no particular reason other than the morning came again. But I promised you a warning, and here it is. When you release that prayer, when the dam shifts and the river finds its course, you will feel something you might mistake for loss. You will feel lighter, stripped, as if you handed something over and got nothing back in return. That's not loss. That's the sensation of a weight leaving your body that was never yours to carry. And what rushes in to fill the space it occupied is something you cannot prepare for, something that doesn't feel like an answer, but like a presence. I felt it once, sitting with a man who was dying. He couldn't speak anymore. His family had left the room to eat, to rest, to make phone calls they couldn't bear to make in front of him. And in the silence, he opened his eyes, not toward me, not toward the window, but toward something above him, something I couldn't see. And his face changed, not into peace exactly, into recognition, as if he had heard a voice he knew, as if someone had walked into the room whose name he had known his entire life. He died 20 minutes later, and I have never been the same. What I saw in his face was not the end of a prayer. It was the answer to one, the oldest one, the deepest one. the one that had been held behind a dam for so long that releasing it didn't require words at all. Just eyes, just openness, just the willingness to look up and say, without saying, "I know you, I've known you all along," that recognition is coming for you, not because you've earned it, because you're ready for it. And what it will look like in your life, in your kitchen, in your car, in the room where you pray, is something I need to tell you now, because it's closer than you think, closer than the next breath. That recognition I described, that moment when the dying man opened his eyes and saw something he had known his entire life, it's not reserved for the end. It's not something that only happens when the body is failing and the room is quiet and the world has stepped out. It happens in ordinary time, in kitchens, in parked cars, in the 3 seconds before sleep comes. And it is happening right now, in you, as you listen. If you are here with me at this point, still listening, still leaning in, you are exactly the kind of person I hoped would find this video. Not because you have all the answers, because you're still asking. And at this stage of life, after everything you've seen and survived and lost and built, still asking is the rarest and most beautiful thing a human heart can do. So I want to ask you something simple. Subscribe to this channel. Come back tomorrow. Come back the day after. Not because I have all the right words, I don't, but because this is a space where the asking doesn't have to stop, where the prayer you've been holding has a home. Hit that subscribe button, and let's walk this road together one day at a time. You know, there's something only people our age understand. The young think faith is about feeling certain. We know it's about staying, about showing up to the prayer when the answer hasn't come yet, about loving people who are far away, and trusting that love travels distances the eye can't measure. That kind of faith, the kind that doesn't break when it's tested, is the most precious thing on this earth, and it lives in you. Now, let me take you somewhere, because everything I've shared, every image, every word of that ancient song has been building toward one final revelation. And it's not what you think. It's bigger than protection, bigger than shelter, bigger than the answer to any single prayer you've ever spoken. The ancient song has one more verse, the last one, and what it says will change the way you see every single night you've spent awake, worrying about the people you love. It's coming right now. Here is the last verse of the ancient song, the one everything has been moving toward. Every image, every question, every prayer held and released. Listen to how it ends. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. Read that one more time. Not I will give him a long life, not I will add years to his days. With long life I will satisfy him. As if the length of your days is not the gift. The satisfaction within those days is the gift. As if God looked at you, at the years you've already lived, the weight you've already carried, the prayers you've already spoken, and the ones you've been too afraid to say, and made a promise not about quantity, but about fullness, that the days you have left, however many they are, would not be empty, that they would be satisfied, filled, completed, not with ease but with meaning, not with the absence of sorrow, but with the presence of something that makes sorrow bearable, and sometimes, inexplicably, beautiful. And then the final phrase, I will show him my salvation. Not send, not announce, show. That's a word that requires proximity. You don't show something to someone across a distance. You bring them close. You turn their face toward it. You say, look, right there. What you've been searching for in every prayer, every sleepless night, every arm flung out to protect someone you love. It was never far. It was here. It has been here the whole time. The shelter was never a place you had to travel to. The shadow was never something you had to earn. The roots were already growing. In every two-word prayer, every sigh over a sleeping child, every morning you got out of bed when the grief was heavy and you got up anyway. You were dwelling in the shelter all along. You just didn't know it yet. And now you do. Here is what I want you to take with you tonight. Not as an idea, but as something you feel in your chest, beneath the ribs, in the place where that hidden prayer has been living. The people you love are covered, not because you're strong enough to cover them, because the arm that reaches through you when you pray is older than the storm and steadier than the ground, and it does not let go. It has never let go. Not once, not ever. That prayer you were afraid to say it tonight. Not perfectly, not loudly, just say it. Let the dam shift. Let the river find its course. You will not be disappointed. You will be satisfied. If this spoke to something in you, something that had been waiting a long time to be spoken to, then subscribe to this channel. Come back tomorrow and do one more thing for me. Share this video with 5 people you love. 5 people who need to hear what you just heard. Send it to them the way you'd send a prayer, quietly, without explanation, trusting that they'll know why you sent it when the moment is right. And leave a comment below, not a long one, just one honest sentence about what you felt during this video. What shifted? What released? What came home? And if there's something you want me to talk about next, a fear, a question, a prayer that still feels unanswered, tell me. I'm listening. I'm always listening. The oak tree in the frozen field is still standing. Its roots are deeper than the storm, and so are yours. The shadow of the wing is over your house tonight, over every room, over every person you love, over you. Rest in it.